Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that may be. Let's talk about sex. Oh, wow, wow, wow. Right, yeah. Joy, pump, pump, pump it up. Pain, sunshine. What else? What else?
And
Rain.
rain.
Listen to the raw bass. It was like old 90s. Instead, let's talk about philosophy. Was it
Okay.
don't know much about philosophy or something like that? Doo. All I know is that I love you
Ooh.
and I wanna make you mad
Mm.
and I wanna grab your boobs. I don't think that's
You're a
the
poet.
I
I
think that's the words.
don't think so either.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about philosophy.
Philosophy is like everybody says,
I don't have a song.
be philosophy. They use the word, oh, this is philosophy, or that's you're being philosophical, or what's your philosophy? There's another song from good old, what's her name, Kristen Chenoweth from the uh, "You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown" musical. That's a
Yeah.
great one.
Oh,
That's my philosophy, my new
yeah. That's a great
philosophy.
one.
She gets is, um, she gets influenced and instructed by different things people say. Hey, that's my new philosophy, and she moves on. So yeah, but philosophy, what it really is, the definition is to love wisdom, love of wisdom. So to have a, so let's do philosophy about philosophy.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
it's to love of wisdom about love of wisdom. It's like,
Yes.
but really, what I think another way of um, explaining philosophy is it's to think about thinking.
Yeah.
Because if you love wisdom, you're going to think about thinking and think about knowledge, think about experience, and think about judgment. Because that's what wisdom is.
Hmm.
It's the especially the application of what is it? The quality of experience, knowledge, and judgment.
Judgment, yeah.
And it's interesting because in the judgment, it resides. Do you know where?
It, the frontal lobe. Well, that's
Yeah,
what you, yes.
that's what I want.
That's what you need your development of your frontal lobe to, in order to make good judgments, your
Yeah,
decision making
yeah, and
capabilities.
when either a kid, for example, or a
Oh, yeah. And actually using your knowledge and experience in your left and right hemisphere of your brains. Like that is
right,
with your decisions.
yeah, I mean that's like a
That's
fully
wisdom.
formed.
Yeah. It's your brain communicating, which is like you're saying, thinking. It's to
Yeah,
actually think
a,
through what you know, what you have experienced, and make judgments and to move forward with another decision.
right, and right, the frontal lobe isn't fully developed until say about 25,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why there's so many less than 25-year-olds lack judgment or are
Yes.
really impulsive and very reactive. It's a
Mm-hmm.
part of their
It's,
structure,
yeah, that's actually the developmental stage they're in.
right?
They need
It's
that's
also the issue
yeah.
of DUI or DWI. The reason why alcohol is so injurious to driving, why it's so impairing to driving, is because it really affects divided attention tasks,
Yeah, interesting. Uh-huh.
and it affects the first thing that goes when you consume alcohol. It's a neurological depressant.
Mm-hmm.
Is judgment
Yeah.
and eventually coordination.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really bad for driving.
Mm-hmm.
Bad
Yeah.
for bad for a lot of things, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah,
But
because you don't just use good judgment in
there
driving.
you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting because if that's the case, and it is, then philosophy could rightly be defined as love of cognitive functioning,
I love that.
love of cognitive
I love
development,
that. Yeah,
love of neuroscience. How about that?
yeah. And then which makes philosophy so interesting is then when you do philosophy, share philosophy with someone, you're sharing your love of your cognitive development, your experience and your decision, right, with another,
Interesting.
which is share it's and then discussing truth, what is, because I
Right.
know mine and you know yours or whoever you're speaking with.
It's interesting.
Interesting.
It's
I love
interesting.
philosophy.
It's interesting because what you're saying there about like sharing with another person. I mean, that's. I've said before that empathy is simply just a form of abstract thinking. It's an extension of object permanence, right? Like when a kid, when they're young, you can play peekaboo, and so they don't know, right? Oh, where'd he go?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can, have a coin or something, cover it up, and they're like, where'd it go? It's gone. It no
Yeah.
longer exists because I can't see it.
Yeah.
And eventually they develop object permanence, and they remember these things exist when I'm not around or when I can't see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you were saying there about sharing, it's like it's that's a whole nother level of philosophy because it's saying now I want to experience, know, and have judgment about your experience, knowledge, and judgment, which is to say your
Yeah.
behaviors and your approaches to life and the way you navigate your environment. I want to know about
Yeah.
that. And
And
I
then
love
it's
that.
yes, me too. And then you can also actually with philosophy you get to use and think through another perspective like, I wonder what I would have done in that situation, knowing what I like, things like that. You can
Mm-hmm.
really, or I didn't know that about what I thought I already knew. So it allows me to think even further about things I've thought.
Mm-hmm. And it's such a
Thinking.
critical, thinking is the very human experience, but
Oh yeah.
connecting to another human is
Yeah.
necessary to humanity.
And I think that's what led me to that is then it allows more empathy because it builds perspective.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's it. It's you take perception and sharing your perceptions with another allows you to gain perspective, empathy,
Yeah.
applying my perception through your filter, and now we can adjust it and see what we share, what we don't,
Mm-hmm.
and find not have my truth and your truth, but have honest truth,
Mm-hmm.
objective truth, something real.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's a connection in that's sound.
Yeah. I love the perception and perspective thought, but because you were talking about that the other day, and I've been thinking about that, and the whole empathy thing. You have to have perceptions first, but with only you were mentioning with only your perceptions, you cannot, or without talking to another about, or even understanding that you have your own perceptions,
Mm-hmm.
right, that are different from mine. And then when you talk about those, then you really can, it really opens up the perception thing.
Yeah.
But they're both important.
Mm.
Anyways, and that's,
Yeah. Well, I'm Matt Long,
I'm Kristen Long.
and we're skeptical mystics. And the idea of being skeptical mystics is both about being skeptical about your mystical experiences
Mm-hmm.
and allowing mysticism to elevate your skepticism and to be inspired by skepticism even. And it's really this, I think, this idea of we have so many parts of the brain, not just two. There's two hemispheres, but there's so many regions that do so many interesting and compelling and interrelated things. This system of the brain and nervous system. But if we break it down just to two, and we could do that, there is this mystical and the skeptical. There's the imagination, the emotion, the high experience, and then reason, rationality, logic. And they both, one without the other, again, is madness.
Yes.
And they are meant to be, like a good marriage, teammates, partners, a symbiotic companionship, a system that has a singular purpose because they share an outcome.
Yeah. With pushes and pulls.
They share an outcome.
Yeah.
And so they should have the same purpose. And a great way is to filter mysticism through skepticism and skepticism through mysticism, and do that a couple times. And that's what loving wisdom is, because love is attention and love is awareness. And so if we attend to our experiences, knowledge, and judgment, and if we're aware of our experiences, knowledge, and judgment, if we spend time with our attention and awareness, that's love. But I was thinking about love and how we always say that love is a virtue. And that's not always the case, because people love power. People love money. People love to see others in pain. People love cruelty. They love selfishness. They love so many destructive, dangerous, and demoralizing things. And so there are different types of love, just like there are different types of truth. This idea of perception is saying, okay, if all I do is live in my perception, then I have my truth. And you can live in your perception and have your truth. And we can maybe agree to disagree about what is, and that's fine. It's necessary. But if it's about what is, about existence, and if you share an existence, an environment, it's a lot easier, more comfortable, pleasurable, and even interesting if you share truths more than if you are divided in what's true. And so there's a connection between truth and love. And I think philosophically, if one loves wisdom and applies experience, knowledge, and judgment, there are, without controversy, 3 types of truths, which are also 3 types of love. And that's the one we all, I think, intend to mean when we say love or say truth. And that is something that is objective or real. But then there's what I'm going to call religious love and religious truth. And that's something that is based on story, narrative, mythology. The story that says who's the hero, villain, victim, and reliable reporter. And if you get to dictate the roles of that story, of that mythology, then that dictates love and dictates truth. And then the third one is political truth and love of politics. So yeah, let's call this religious truth and love of religion.
Yeah.
And political truth and love of politics.
Yeah.
which is allowing power to dictate love and truth. So here it's not what is, it's not even based on story. It's what power do I have to force either a narrative or an outcome?
Mhm.
Do I have the power, the influence to either destroy evidence of something that's not my position, or recreate and replace
Mhm.
evidence of me being right? And that's political
Mm.
political truth and love of
I love
politics.
politics. Yeah.
And what's interesting is so many relationships are really filtered through either religious truth and love of religion or political truth and love of politics. And they allow those truths to impact the relationship. And as we've deconstructed religion, political deconstruction happened with it.
True.
So,
True.
people ask me my politics, and what they really mean, are you Democrat or Republican, or are you liberal, are you conservative, are you? They've got these labels, and I can't answer that
Yeah.
because I don't. I pretty much hate the same people you hate. That's what I tell them.
Yeah.
Because
no
that's
matter
a
what.
pretty accurate. Really doesn't matter who I am talking to.
Mhm.
I agree. I generally agree with them about the people they hate.
Mhm.
I'm just say I hate them all. Because if you're filtering truth through politics, I hate you.
Yeah, and the love of politics.
Yeah.
Right. It all matters about
Yeah.
that. Yep.
And
Just
similarly,
can't
if you
relate.
filter your truth through religion,
That's not the way we love.
yeah, that's not me. That's
Yeah.
not me.
That's just not the way we. Yeah.
Because I view myself as a philosopher, a lover of philosophy, a lover of my family, independent of any religious truth or political truth or love of religion and love of politics. That takes away from my love of my family, and in abandoning that, I simply embrace relationship truth, love of relationships.
Yeah.
And for me, because I'm an adult that are married with children, the only relationships that matter are the ones with my wife and with my children. And so what I call that, this other form of truth, this relationship truth, is true love. And again, this truth, but okay, now we're back at true. Well, is it political truth, religious truth? Because you could have that within here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what most people do. They say, I love my family. Oh, that's true. I'm like you too, Matt. I'm like you. That's my family's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I have true love. And then you go further and find out again, they filter their relationship through either political or religious love. So the word that I use instead of true is honest.
Yeah.
Love of honesty and honest truth. And that's where I find the most valuable and elevating family relationships. Mind-body relationships as well, because the same thing applies to the relationship of my mind to the body and the body to my mind.
Yeah. The thing that you.
Me.
You.
And it's meant to be honest. So what's honest? We were telling our daughter the other day. We were arguing, and I said that's just not true. And she said it is true. And I said, you know what? You're right. It is true. It's just not honest. And she stopped. What's the difference? Well, you have provided me an accurate fact, but you have decontextualized it. You've taken it out of other also accurate facts that instruct that fact and give and give more context, more depth, more flavor to that fact. As it's so honesty is about accuracy, precision, and completeness.
Yeah.
Accuracy and precision is different. You can be accurate once, but to be precise, you need to be accurate again and again and again. And then to finish the exercise to be complete, so you have to be accurate, precise, and complete. You go to the range and you fire 20 shots, and all you do is tell me about your one bullseye, and then don't mention that the other 19 didn't hit the target. You're not a good shot.
True.
But it is true that you hit the bullseye.
Yeah, that's a very great example.
Right.
Very great example.
It's true.
Yeah.
But is it honest?
And complete. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it honest?
Is it? Yeah.
And that's a good way to filter really all of philosophy. Experience. Is it true? Right? Is it accurate? Is it complete? Is it precise? Because too often we rush to judgment without there being completeness. It's like a song that has dissonance, right? You have these conflict of notes.
Yeah.
It's as if you stopped right there and people said,
turn it off.
Noise.
Just
Hold on. I'm doing something. It's pretty cool. There's a thing we called resolve, a resolution, and it makes it pretty.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. Yeah, it's hilarious. It's hilarious. It's so interested when people want to talk about my truth. But my truth is your truth is our truth. I want your truth, right?
Yes, it's like that.
What's a Christmas gram? I want one.
Like we said earlier, the perception and the perspective really they go hand in hand, because just like that, if your perception's off reality, then you don't even have an accurate perception.
Right.
But when you share with another, you have to make sure your perception, or when your perception and their perception, you can find reality.
Right. Well,
but my truth, that's to live against reality isn't really a healthy thing, because you just keep getting farther from it.
But it does take a lot of trust to filter your perception, your reality, through another person.
Yeah.
Because that forces you to be complete, precise, and accurate. And too many people are not willing to do that. So instead we filter it through somebody else's recipe book, because we can do that internally, because I can't tell you the whole picture. And that, again, requires honesty to have an honest connection.
Yeah.
It's the problem with modern therapy is it's can only be as good or effective as the person's able to be honest with themselves, let alone the person they're reporting to.
Yeah.
So how can you find truth if you're not honest? It's because they don't. They just want outcomes. But this to think about thinking, to feel what is real, to know what is true, and to be right about you is philosophy. And it's really what we tell children to do, and it's kind of what's in children's mind from the beginning. They are excited to think, to be aware, to remember. Watch, this is our little 2-year-old grand friend now walking around in the new stage, and awe in awareness. He's aware of something, and oh my gotch. He's
Yes.
fascinated. He's excited
So
about
cute.
awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I love watching it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I want that. What's
I
a Christmas
know.
ram? I want one. I want to walk around. Oh my gosh!
I know.
I did just drive in a Tesla for the first time recently, and that I did feel a little. Oh my gosh!
Yeah. I would say the same.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah.
Oh, I know.
But to think about thinking, to learn, to feel, to do, to succeed. I did it. And this Western philosophy obviously came from Socrates, which became Plato, which became Aristotle, which each built on the others and brought thinking, brought concepts, brought theory a little further.
Mm-hmm.
Aristotle developed a great system of wisdom in the scientific method, which was just simply a form of thinking, learning, feeling, and doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's to observe, measure, predict,
Mm-hmm.
test.
Mm-hmm.
Think, learn, feel, do.
Yeah.
And that continued on to today, where there are people doing good philosophy, loving wisdom, applying experience, applying knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and using good judgment.
Yeah.
And it exists even in sacred spaces and what are considered divine areas. I think the best, I think one of the most ancient and the most, at least the most precise and the closest to this type of philosophy is Vedanta philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah,
is
they've
which
been
is
saying
expressed
this
as
for a long
Hinduism.
time.
And there are the four great yogas, the four great exercises, the four great non-dual experiences. There's never a end to the. When I say yoga, I'm not talking about obviously body
Yeah.
movement, not hatha yoga. I'm talking about the
Yeah.
four great yogas: Raya, Jnana, Bhakti, and Karma.
Mhm.
Raya, to think about thinking. Jnana, to learn, to know what is true. Bhakti, to feel what is real. And karma, to do, to be right about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that Eastern philosophy, love of wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
has an application, a soundness that is applied pretty well to humanity if done with wisdom,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
if done from a place of love, not exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
In the Western world, and especially in the modern Western world, there are modern mystics, modern skeptics who are also mystical in their skepticism, that stood on the shoulders of Aristotle in the areas of psychology and education and the mind and relationships. And they're known. Abraham Maslow, the modern of positive psychology. And positive psychology meaning finding happiness rather than trying to neutralize pathology and threats. Creative tools versus neutralizing pathogens.
Yeah.
And Maslow, right? That's why he said, if the what is it? If all you carry is a hammer, the world looks a nail.
Yeah.
Everything looks like a nail. And you hammer it. Mm-hmm. So he was commenting on the need for more tools in order to identify, predict, and meet your needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Your esteem needs, your safety needs, your
your
relationship,
connection, your relationship needs.
your connection needs,
Yeah.
and all these, your developmental needs. How about that?
Yeah.
Your cognitive functioning needs.
Because really he was saying all of this.
Yeah.
It really is.
To think.
Yeah. And get to a place where you have to be safe and, to be able to develop.
And Benjamin Bloom, who still used the Bloom's taxonomy.
Bloom's taxonomy, yep.
The system of learning, the process of learning.
Yes.
The ability to learn, to ultimately, whereas Maslow was there is the capacity to transcend, which is to transcend suffering. If you meet your needs fully enough, it means you've neutralized your threats and the pathogens enough to actually experience this thing called happiness. Really, it's not even happiness. If you're in transcendence, you're in ecstasy. You eliminate and reduce agony enough in order to experience ecstasy. In Bloom, you can learn enough to get to a place until you create.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge, remembering becomes creation.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing,
learning
a thing
allows you to create
the thing.
Yeah. He taught to fully learn a thing.
Right.
Just by knowing something does not mean you know.
I heard a thing once,
and that is the most the knowing.
And I can repeat it.
That does not mean you know a thing.
That's right.
Yeah. And it's really the higher steps of application and analyzing, which is what you were saying, the wisdom of thinking through a thing, being able to fully think with your fully developed brain. So he was speaking the same thing.
And the fourth is Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, flow theory. And that's the concept of you work on doing a thing at a level that is challenging enough, but you're good at, so it's interesting and exciting and exhilarating and frustrating enough, but not too frustrating as to be destructive. Yeah. And he called that flow. Some people call it in the zone. But that wasn't just like, being in a presence, for example, a form of meditation. It was a form of doing. It was active.
Yeah, I think it's a little misunderstood.
It was applying. It was really applied knowledge, wisdom. Now it can be in the terms of whether it be sports, golf, basketball, work, plays, lovemaking. You can be in the zone and always improving your technique, your skill, your understanding, your development, your application to do. And so that's the Western philosophers' 4 great yogas, or 3 great yogas. Those 3, there's a 4th, and that's relationships.
Yes.
And just recently, within the last year, a fascinating study called the Harvard study just came out. And it's a study about relationships and how we know, they say, we figured out happiness, everyone. Da, 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 da. It took us 100 years.
Almost, 100
millions of dollars.
Longest study, did you say?
Longest longitudinal study with just an incredible, it was an impressive study in its scope and in its application and in its value and rigor and in its reliability.
Yeah. Yes, that matters.
And what it says is, humans are happy when they have relationships. And therein is the rub. Whether it be Maslow, Bloom, Csikszentmihalyi, or the Harvard study. How?
Good question.
We know we need our needs. It's important to have your needs met. We know it's important to reduce suffering. We know
No, we know it's important.
that it's important to learn.
Mhm.
We
We
know
it's important to connect.
it's important
Like
to connect,
everyone
and we
knows
know
this,
it's
yeah.
important to
And
do.
everyone's trying.
It's
I
important to
think,
be
but like
productive. That's what Csikszentmihalyi said. Be productive. It's like, calm
Yeah.
down.
Oh no, I'm.
How? Unfortunately, I think there is an answer, and the best answer is through Bloom. We'll start by learning.
Mhm.
And how do you start by learning? You start by hearing. Every child does. They start learning by hearing,
Mhm.
by observing. The first step in
It's so true. Yeah.
the scientific method. They hear, they observe, and then once they develop language, how do they gain more knowledge? They ask
Yeah.
questions. And
Or they do little tests and
do
fail or
tests.
figure it out,
That's
or I
right.
got this reaction and this was,
They-
and they're try and
they
learn,
measure.
like this trial and error
They measure, they predict,
Mhm.
and they test.
through what they have learned or know already.
That's
Yeah.
right. And so the best way to get a
Great.
child to learn is to hear them, ask questions of their questions, give them truthful, accurate, complete, and precise information,
Mhm.
and then test it together
That's good.
and adjust
Yep.
your information based on a shared experience, not a religious, story-driven, mythological, political, power-driven way.
Yeah.
And in learning that way, you're connecting. In learning that way, you're communicating.
Mhm.
In learning that way, you're finding flow. And in learning that way together, you're identifying everyone's needs and experiencing a thing called empathy, which is abstract thinking, which is wise.
Mhm.
It's wisdom. And experiencing true love, honest love, which is understood as intimacy. It's not that deep. It doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
And so, what religion are you? What politics are you? Love is my religion, as I think Lenny says. I love love. I love honesty. I love truth. I love justice. I love morality, but I love wisdom. And so I love things like I'm American. I love my guns. I love my guns not because of the power or the destruction of them, but I love the wisdom of gun safety.
Mhm.
Because there's wisdom in gun safety
Mhm.
and security, control over a very dangerous tool. And the first, those rules are, the wise rules are, treat every weapon, every gun as if it's loaded. Number one. Number two, don't point the gun at anything you're not willing to kill or destroy. Number three, know your target and what's behind it,
Mhm.
beyond it, around it. Be aware. Have attention. Love your target. And the fourth one, keep your fucking finger off your fucking trigger until you are ready and intentional in depressing it.
Mhm.
And there's wisdom in that. And those same principles can be applied to a lot of situations.
And you can be sound in knowing
Right.
with that wisdom
Exactly.
how safe.
Apply that to sex. It works.
Yep.
A buddy of mine's he's a motorcycle enthusiast and an instructor, and he does a lot of motorcycle safety stuff in his as an intermediate rider, I love talking to him, but he was talking about motorcycle safety, and he calls it what do you call it? SIPD. SIPD, like sip
Oh, okay. Sip,
D.
not Swifty.
No,
Sip-D.
SIPD, not T. SIPD. SIPDE.
Oh, Sip-D. Okay.
And that stands for scan, identify, predict, decide, execute. And what he just described there was wisdom,
Yeah.
experience, knowledge, good judgment, and the application of that. What he described was the scientific method. What he described was pretty high-end cognitive functioning. And it's why driving is such, it requires cognitive functioning. And it's why we don't let, why 16-year-olds is the bottom, or, the pretty much the youngest that driving should be happening on city roads with other cars.
Just
with other cars. Yeah, with stop signs, with stoplights, with a bunch of streets.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of streets, bunch of cars, bunch of traffic stuff requires pretty advanced, developed cognition, good judgment, requires wisdom, requires real experience, real knowledge, and real good judgment. But so I love motorcycle safety. And so I love motorcycles. I love, I love high-end sex techniques amongst lovers and partners. Because there's wisdom in the techniques, boundaries, and processes. And I think those boundaries include honesty, accuracy, precision, and completeness about the thoughts you think. It was something after, I guess, 27 years of marriage, we've kind of figured out that all things are thinks, including emotions. And if we can share our developed thoughts with each other, we can share experiences, knowledge, and then together find even better judgment than we could have alone.
True.
And I think that's what Maslow was ultimately communicating, and what Bloom was communicating, what Csikszentmihalyi flow theory was communicating, what the Harvard study was intending to communicate. It's not just that you have relationships, but that you have a high quality relationship, that you have honest relationships, that you have connecting relationship, collaborative relationships, companionship, partnership, teammates. That you feel like you have a duty to the well-being of the person if you claim to love them. And there's that same application as it relates to parenting. Wise parenting is honest. It's good philosophy. It's good thinking. So it's making me think of an old story, a story about a word in the beginning. That in the beginning was a word. And a word was God. And a word was with God. And the word was made flesh and became real. Now, some people have their religious truth and their political truth about what that means and who or what that word was. But I'm less interested in the word than in where a word comes from. Because a word just doesn't just come from anywhere. A word is a developed and evolved thought. An idea, a concept, a theory. So before there was a word, there was a thought. There was an idea, there was a concept, there was consciousness. And that consciousness was God. And that thought was God. And that idea and concept was God. It was developed and evolved into a word that became matter. Because many words are ultimately a collection of many thoughts and many ideas, not just one. It takes it requires rubbing a number of thoughts together and the alchemy of blending thoughts and ideas to generate language.
Oh.
But to make a word real is to do ultimately what Maslow, Bloom, Csikszentmihalyi, and the Harvard study asserted can be. You can meet your needs.
Mm-hmm.
You can learn, you can create, you can do, and you can relate and connect to another being. To be human is the Word made flesh. And then humans doing philosophy, doing human things, create new things. Their own ideas and thoughts and concepts becoming words and turning those words, those nouns, into verbs, into actions, into things. Doing philosophy, loving philosophy, think about thinking. Learn what is true. Feel what is real and be right about you. That is the Ancient of Days. That is presence. That is today and that is tomorrow. It's not that deep. It never has been. It just requires a little more cognitive development and cognitive activation and the presence of somebody else that you love. Honestly. Or something like that.
Or something like that. They're cute.
Thanks, Socrates.
Thanks, Socrates.
Thanks,
Matt.
Aristotle.
I wonder if it's good.
Hmm?
I wonder if it's good.
What's that?
Our recording. I think it is.